Have you ever deeply contemplated the mysterious mechanism that fundamentally enables the existence of our modern global society? Welcome to our prestigious documentary series exploring the World Top 100 events that define the trajectory of human history. Today we examine rank number 89, which chronicles the monumental and intricate development of global financial systems. I am your field reporter embarking on a 20-minute investigation consisting of over 150 detailed scenes. We shall explore the origins of trust that allowed civilizations to flourish across the millennia of human progress. This investigation is grounded in empirical evidence and rigorous historical data collected from across the globe for your educational enlightenment. Let us begin our journey by looking back at the dawn of civilization when the first seeds of economic cooperation were sown in fertile ground. The story of finance is truly the story of humanity's collective ambition to organize resources for a shared and prosperous future for everyone. Our journey begins in the fertile valleys where agriculture necessitated the first sophisticated systems of social trust and credit. Archaeological evidence from 5,000 years ago reveals meticulous ledger systems used to track grain and livestock with precision. In the ancient city of Uruk Temple, administrators recorded complex transactions on wet clay tablets using primitive cuneiform scripts. These ledgers represented the first abstraction of value, where a mark on clay stood for physical resources stored within city granaries. This development provided a social framework for debt and credit that predates the physical concept of minted currency. Evidence suggests that these accounting systems were essential for managing the large-scale labor required for irrigation and public works. The ability to record obligations across time and space allowed early states to coordinate resources with unprecedented efficiency. Scribes were the architects of this economic order, maintaining detailed records that ensured the stability of the burgeoning urban centers. As trade routes expanded across the Fertile Crescent, the requirement for standardized units of account became increasingly critical for inter-city commerce. These early financial technologies laid the bedrock for all subsequent developments in the history of human economic cooperation. We observed the birth of a system where trust was codified into physical artifacts that could be audited and verified by central authorities. This was the true engine of ancient growth, providing the necessary predictability for long-distance trade and monumental construction projects alike. Quantitative analysis of these tablets reveals a high degree of mathematical sophistication and a deep understanding of compound interest. Even at the dawn of history, humanity was already mastering the fundamental principles of finance that would later conquer the world. Every tablet recovered from the sands of time tells a story of a society striving to manage its wealth through rigorous documentation. This was the first step in a long process of moving from personal agreements to institutionalized systems of financial governance. The transition from physical barter to recorded debt allowed for a massive expansion in the scope and complexity of early urban life. Let us move forward in time to see how these ledger systems evolved into standardized currency. The transition from weighing commodities to utilizing minted coinage represented a revolutionary shift in the velocity of ancient commerce. By the 7th century before Christ, the Kingdom of Lydia introduced the first electrum coins to facilitate faster and more reliable transactions. These early coins were stamped with the royal seal, guaranteeing their weight and purity, which significantly reduced the cost of doing business. Before this innovation, merchants were required to weigh precious metals and verify their quality for every single transaction in the marketplace. The introduction of standard units of value allowed Mediterranean trade to achieve unprecedented levels of efficiency and reach new geographic horizons. Archaeological data supports the conclusion that coinage was the primary catalyst for the expansion of the Greek and Roman economic spheres. Coins acted as a portable form of social trust that could be recognized and accepted across diverse cultural and political boundaries. The ability to move wealth in a compact and durable form enabled the rapid growth of professional armies and the administration of vast empires. We see the emergence of specialized banking houses that offered currency exchange and credit facilities to traveling merchants and state officials. These early financial intermediaries provided the liquidity necessary for the flourishing of classical arts, sciences, and grand architectural achievements. The stability of the Roman denarius provided a common economic language for millions of people across 3 continents for several centuries. However, the inherent challenges of maintaining the debasement of currency eventually tested the resilience of these early financial structures. We analyze the historical data that tracks the rise and fall of these ancient monetary systems and their impact on social stability. The lessons learned from the classical era continue to inform our understanding of the relationship between state power and monetary integrity. This period solidified the role of the state as the ultimate guarantor of value within a sophisticated and interconnected global trading network. The introduction of coins also facilitated the growth of a market economy where individuals could more easily exchange their labor for goods. This democratization of wealth allowed for a significant increase in the standard of living for many people within the Roman Empire. Coins became a medium for political propaganda, often featuring the portrait of the reigning emperor to reinforce their authority and legitimacy. The spread of coinage also necessitated the development of more advanced methods for detecting counterfeit currency and maintaining public trust. We see the birth of the first regulatory frameworks designed to ensure the integrity of the monetary supply for the benefit of all. This era of financial history proved that a stable and reliable currency is the foundation of any enduring and prosperous civilization. As the classical world gave way to the Middle Ages, the principles of coinage remained a central pillar of economic life. The legacy of ancient mints can still be seen in the design and functionality of modern physical currencies used around the world. Let us now explore how the medieval period further refined these systems through the birth of modern banking institutions. The Silk Road trade routes demanded sophisticated mechanisms to handle the immense risks of transcontinental commodity exchange across hostile territories. In medieval Italy, the rise of powerful families like the Medici transformed the landscape of European finance with remarkable ingenuity. They pioneered double-entry bookkeeping, a rigorous method that ensured financial accuracy and transparency for increasingly complex commercial enterprises. This period witnessed the birth of the Bill of Exchange, allowing merchants to move wealth without the peril of transporting physical gold. Banking houses in Venice and Florence became the vital nodes of a global network that financed everything from spices to cathedral construction. These institutions provided the necessary capital for the burgeoning trade that would eventually lead to the age of maritime exploration. We observe the emergence of clearing houses that could settle debts between diverse merchants without the movement of physical currency. This abstraction of wealth allowed for a massive expansion in the volume of trade and the growth of wealthy city-states. The development of maritime insurance further reduced the risks of long-distance commerce by pooling capital to cover potential losses at sea. Scholarly research indicates that these medieval financial innovations were the true precursors to the modern global banking system we use today. The ability to lend and borrow across vast distances created a new class of professional financiers who wielded significant political influence. We see the transition from personal trust between individuals to institutional trust, guaranteed by the reputation of established banking firms. The Medici Bank, for example, operated branches in all major European cities, creating the first truly international financial network. This infrastructure allowed for the transfer of funds through paper instruments that were recognized and honored across different jurisdictions. The resilience of these systems was tested by wars and political upheavals, but the fundamental principles of banking remained largely intact. We analyze the evidence of how these financial networks enabled the Renaissance to flourish through the consistent flow of investment capital. The legacy of medieval Italian finance continues to resonate in the terminology and practices of modern accounting and international trade. This era also saw the rise of public banks that began to issue notes representing deposits, which was a critical step toward paper money. These notes provided a more convenient and secure method for conducting large-scale transactions within the growing European cities. The ability of banks to create credit through fractional reserve lending became a powerful tool for financing economic growth and public works. However, this new power also brought the risk of bank runs and systemic instability, which required the development of oversight. The evolution of medieval banking was a testament to the human capacity to innovate in the face of great risk and uncertainty. We see the birth of a global financial culture that emphasized the importance of reputation and long-term institutional stability. These developments allowed for the concentration of wealth that funded the great voyages of discovery and the birth of modern science. The Medici and their contemporaries proved that financial power could be used to shape the cultural and political destiny of nations. As we move into the early modern era, these principles would be further refined through the creation of central banking institutions. By the 17th century, the establishment of the Bank of England introduced a revolutionary paradigm of national debt and public credit. This innovation allowed the state to borrow large sums of money at low interest rates to fund naval expansion and global colonization. The creation of a central bank provided a stable foundation for the domestic economy by managing the national currency and providing liquidity. This period saw the rise of government bonds as a safe investment vehicle for the growing middle class and institutional investors alike. The ability to mobilize national wealth for public projects transformed the capacity of the modern state to exert power on a global scale. We observe the formalization of the relationship between the government and the financial sector, which created a durable economic ecosystem. The success of the British model led other nations to establish their own central banking institutions to compete in the global marketplace. These banks assumed the critical role of managing the money supply and maintaining the stability of the entire financial architecture. We analyze the data that shows the direct correlation between the growth of central banking and the rise of industrial power in Europe. The Industrial Revolution required massive amounts of capital that could only be provided by a sophisticated and well-regulated financial system. Stock markets in London and Amsterdam became the primary venues for the allocation of capital toward new technologies and infrastructure. The emergence of joint stock companies allowed individual investors to participate in the wealth created by global trade and industrial production. However, the rapid expansion of credit also led to the first major financial bubbles and subsequent market crashes that tested the system. We examined the historical records of the South Sea Bubble and other early crises that necessitated stronger regulatory frameworks for investor protection. The evolution of central banking was a process of constant adaptation to the changing needs of a dynamic and expanding global economy. This era solidified the role of institutional trust as the primary driver of national prosperity and international influence in the modern world. Central banks also began to act as lenders of last resort, providing stability to private banks during times of financial panic. This function was essential for preventing the kind of systemic collapses that had plagued earlier eras of banking and commerce. The development of monetary policy as a tool for managing inflation and economic growth became a central responsibility of these institutions. We see the birth of a new form of technocratic governance that emphasized the importance of financial stability for social order. The Bank of England set the standard for transparency and accountability that would eventually be adopted by central banks around the world. This institutional framework provided the necessary confidence for long-term investment in the infrastructure of the industrial age. The growth of national debt was no longer seen as a burden, but as a strategic asset that could be managed responsibly. This shift in thinking allowed for the creation of modern welfare states and the financing of large-scale public education and health. The legacy of 17th century central banking remains a cornerstone of our contemporary global financial and political system today. Let us now see how these national systems were integrated into a global order during the 19th century industrial expansion. The 19th century ushered in the era of the gold standard, providing a stable international monetary system for unprecedented global trade. Financial centers in London and New York became the vital nodes of a global network that financed railroads, telegraph lines, and factories. Quantitative data from this period shows a massive surge in international investment flows directed toward rapidly developing economies. The gold standard ensured that international transactions were conducted with a predictable and reliable measure of value across borders. This stability allowed for the first true wave of globalization where commodities and capital moved with minimal friction between continents. The emergence of modern stock exchanges allowed for the efficient allocation of resources toward the most productive sectors of the industrial economy. We observe the rise of massive corporations that could leverage global capital to build infrastructure on a continental scale. The integration of global financial markets meant that economic developments in one region could rapidly impact the entire world system. This era also saw the development of sophisticated insurance and risk management tools that allowed for even larger-scale industrial projects. However, the inherent volatility of the business cycle and the constraints of the gold standard led to periodic economic contractions. We analyze the evidence of how the financial system responded to the challenges of the Great Depression and the subsequent global conflicts. The eventual move away from the gold standard represented a major shift in the philosophical understanding of money and its role in society. Governments assumed greater responsibility for managing the economy through fiscal and monetary policy to ensure full employment and stability. The lessons learned during the 19th and early 20th centuries continue to shape our current approaches to global economic governance. This period demonstrated the immense power of financial systems to transform the physical world through the strategic application of capital and credit. We see the birth of the modern consumer economy, driven by the expansion of personal credit and the growth of middle-class wealth. The gold standard also created a sense of permanence and reliability that encouraged long-term saving and investment among the population. This culture of financial prudence was essential for providing the capital needed to fuel the relentless expansion of the industrial age. We observed the growth of international banking syndicates that could finance massive projects in distant lands with relative ease. The ability to track global market prices in real time through the telegraph revolutionized the way capital was allocated across borders. This was the first era of high-speed finance where information became as valuable as the physical capital it represented in the market. The integration of the world economy under the gold standard created a powerful incentive for international peace and cooperation among nations. However, the system also had its critics who argued that it favored the interests of creditors over those of the working classes. The debates over the future of the gold standard were a central feature of the political landscape in many countries during this period. As we move into the 20th century, the challenges of global war and depression would eventually lead to a new financial order. This transformation would reflect a new understanding of the role of the state in maintaining economic stability and social progress. The legacy of the 19th century remains a powerful reminder of the potential and the perils of a global financial system. In the aftermath of the Second World War, the Bretton Woods Conference established a new international financial order based on cooperation. The creation of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank aimed to ensure global stability and facilitate post-war reconstruction. This era was characterized by the dominance of the US dollar as the primary reserve currency for the entire international system. We observe a period of unprecedented economic growth and the expansion of the global middle class in many parts of the world. The development of electronic payment systems and the growth of credit cards revolutionized the way individuals interacted with the financial system. Massive investment in technology and infrastructure was financed through increasingly complex and integrated global capital markets. We analyze the data that tracks the rise of multinational corporations and their impact on the global allocation of resources and labor. The eventual collapse of the Bretton Woods fixed exchange rate system in the early 1970s led to a new era of floating currencies. This shift required even more sophisticated financial instruments to manage the risks of currency fluctuations and interest rate volatility. The rise of the euro-dollar market and the growth of international banking centers like London and Hong Kong transformed global finance. We see the emergence of a truly global and interconnected financial system that operates 24 hours a day across all time zones. The integration of telecommunications and computing technology allowed for the rapid movement of capital and information across borders. However, this increased connectivity also meant that financial shocks could spread more quickly and with greater intensity through the global system. We examined the historical evidence of the various financial crises that have tested the resilience of the post-war international order. The ongoing evolution of global financial governance reflects the need for greater transparency and cooperation in an increasingly complex world. This period solidified the role of the global financial system as the primary infrastructure for international cooperation and economic development. The Bretton Woods institutions continue to play a critical role in managing global economic challenges and promoting sustainable growth worldwide. The shift to floating exchange rates allowed nations to have more flexibility in managing their domestic economic policies for their citizens. This era also witnessed the birth of the derivatives market, which provided new tools for hedging risks in an uncertain global economy. However, the complexity of these new financial instruments also created new forms of systemic risk that would later test the system. We analyzed the impact of financial liberalization and the removal of capital controls on the stability of emerging market economies globally. The growth of international trade was facilitated by a robust and reliable system for settling international payments across different currencies. This period proved that global prosperity is deeply dependent on the quality of international financial institutions and their governance frameworks. As we move into the digital age, the lessons of the post-war order remain essential for building a more stable future. The integration of the global economy has created a powerful incentive for nations to work together to manage shared economic risks. The future of finance will be shaped by the ongoing dialogue between national sovereignty and the requirements of global financial stability. Let us now explore how the digital transformation is once again revolutionizing the way we define and manage our collective wealth. In the contemporary era, the digitization of finance has accelerated the velocity of capital to near instantaneous speeds across the entire globe. Sophisticated algorithms now manage trillions of dollars in assets within milliseconds across diverse and interconnected international markets. The shift from physical banknotes to digital ledgers represents the ultimate abstraction of value in our modern information society. Cryptographic technologies and blockchain protocols are currently challenging traditional notions of centralized financial authority and institutional trust. Statistical analysis indicates that digital transactions now account for over 90% of global wealth movements annually in our economy. We observe the rise of fintech platforms that offer financial services to millions of people who were previously excluded from the banking system. The integration of artificial intelligence into financial decision-making is creating new opportunities and challenges for market stability and regulation. We analyze the potential impact of central bank digital currencies on the future of the international monetary system and global trade. The ability to track and verify transactions in real time with absolute precision is transforming the nature of financial transparency. However, the increased reliance on complex digital systems also creates new vulnerabilities to cyber threats and systemic failures. We examine the historical development of the first digital assets and their impact on the broader financial landscape over the last decade. The ongoing transformation of finance is a process of constant innovation driven by the relentless pursuit of efficiency and accessibility. This era represents a fundamental shift in how we define and interact with wealth in a hyper-connected and data-driven world. We see the emergence of a decentralized financial ecosystem that operates alongside traditional institutions to provide new forms of value. The lessons of financial history remain our most valuable guide as we navigate the uncharted territories of the digital economic frontier. We must ensure that these new technologies are used to create a more stable and inclusive global financial system for everyone. The future of finance will likely be characterized by a synthesis of traditional institutional trust and decentralized cryptographic verification methods. As we look toward the next century, the development of financial systems will continue to be a primary driver of human progress. The integration of sustainable finance and ethical investment practices is becoming an essential requirement for the long-term health of our planet. Every milestone in this investigation has shown us that finance is a powerful tool for social and economic transformation. We have the power and the knowledge to build a financial system that serves the needs of all people regardless of their background. Let us continue to build a world where financial innovation is a force for good and a catalyst for a more peaceful world. Our collective future depends on our ability to manage our shared resources with wisdom and a deep sense of global responsibility. The silent engines of our economy will continue to hum with the energy of human ambition and the power of shared institutional trust. Finance is the language of cooperation that allows us to build a better and more prosperous world for ourselves and our children. We must remain vigilant and proactive in our efforts to build a financial system that is resilient, transparent, and fair for everyone. This comprehensive documentary has provided us with a deeper understanding of the forces that have shaped our economic reality across history. Thank you for your time and your commitment to understanding the complex systems that underpin our collective human experience and progress. The development of financial systems remains a testament to human ingenuity and our collective capacity for institutional cooperation. As we conclude our investigation, we hope you have gained a profound appreciation for the silent engines of our global economy. The journey from ancient clay tablets to digital networks reflects our eternal quest for stability and growth in an uncertain world. 구독과 좋아요를 눌러주세요. 감사합니다. Please subscribe and like our channel for more deep historical content in the future. Thank you and goodbye.